What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Here, guys, Derek and Cody with you as always. Guys, we did a live reaction with this earlier, so if you haven't already seen that, I encourage you to go check out that and our initial reaction. I broke that news down with Drake from the Horseshoe Huddle, so be sure to check that out. Shout out to Drake. But we haven't gotten Cody's reaction to this. The Indianapolis Colts are rumored to hire Shane Steichen, the Eagles offensive coordinator, after the Super Bowl is over. This comes after the news that candidates were being told earlier this morning that they would not be going forward with them. In particular, the big one was interim head coach Jeff Saturday that was brought up. And so now, Cody, I mean, it's not official, but it's like it's an unofficial official report at this point. Feels like it's almost certain that it's going to end up happening, barring anything drastic happen at the end. But what's your initial reaction to hearing Shane Steichen is probably going to be the next head coach of the Indianapolis Colts?
I mean, it makes a lot of sense, right? From the Frank Reich connection, to, just what he's been able to do over the last few years, his body of work. I mean, I just look at Shane Steichen as, he was one of our top candidates. He was always like in our top three for the guys. I know, Derek, you were probably a little bit more higher on him than me. I was more on the Brian Callahan train. But I think you can't go wrong, like we said, with any of these, the three guys there of Callahan or Morris or Steichen. And so overall, yeah, I'm ecstatic with what he's been able to do, with the work that he was able to do with Jalen Hurts this last year, turning him from, a big question mark to a potential MVP candidate if he wouldn't have got injured. Like, Steichen should deserve a lot of this credit. Obviously, the players go out there and play it, but you look at this Philly offense, man, and what they've been able to do this year. And, it's kind of funny. You mentioned it earlier. I don't remember who you said had posted the tweet, but it's like, man, if the Eagles struggled in the Super Bowl, how quickly are Colts fans?
It was Landon. Yeah, Landon Oliver, our guy from the Blue Stable. Yeah, he mentioned that. And I'm like, yeah, that's very true.
Well, regardless, they've done a great job with the Philly offense all year. And, not just in the passing department, but also in the running game. They've done a really, really good job of having this team. And it's not like they have Miles Sanders is a good back, but he's not a Jonathan Taylor type of back. And so what they've been able to do with him and Boston Scott and even Jalen Hurts as well on the ground, it's been really, really good. I mean, this Philly offense has been virtually unstoppable all year. And I know they faced a really good challenge. And, Jalen Hurts didn't have his best game against the 49ers, but that's the best defense in the NFL, right? And they were still able to, do what they did. And so I look at this overall and I just say, man, you look at Shane Steichen, you look at some of what he's been able to do with different guys, like obviously A.J. Brown, one of the best receivers in the game, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders, all these different guys just getting involved in this Philly offense. And you look at it on the Colts side of things, and they have some guys. Like, they don't have an A.J. Brown, at this point, but they have a lot of young talent here. And you think about pairing that with a young quarterback. I mean, it's exciting, man. It's exciting when you've seen his body of work and, who he's been able to develop, working with Justin Herbert as well with the Chargers. He's been, had that connection, obviously, with Phil Rivers as well, who was with the Colts a couple of years ago. So there's a lot of connections here, and it makes a whole lot of sense for the Colts to go this way. And I guess the good thing, I know, some Colts fans and other fans in general will look at it and be like, man, another Philly hire. Is this Frank Reich 2.0? And I'm sorry, I know I kind of cut into one of our points here, and we can get into that. But my initial reaction was, I think this was, out of all the candidates left, in my opinion, this is my favorite candidate. So, yeah, Shane Steichen, while maybe Raheem Morris might have brought in a better staff, Steichen's, he's the hottest candidate right now in terms of offensive coordinators. So, I mean, you look at this and, I really feel more confident now also in developing that rookie quarterback. And I feel more confident. If I wasn't 100% confident, before this hire, I feel 100% confident that the Colts are going to pick one of these top rookie quarterbacks. And I have faith with what Steichen's been able to do that they're going to get the best out of this player. So maybe the Colts do elect to stay at 4. And, if it's a guy like Will Levis or Anthony Richardson's there, maybe they feel more comfortable because of the type of coach like Shane Steichen. Maybe they feel more comfortable. They maybe feel like they could trade down a little bit and a guy like Richardson would still be there. I don't know. Personally, I still think Stroud is the guy that I would want, but I guess from a head coaching standpoint, you feel really good about whoever you get in there at quarterback. That a guy like Steichen is going to be able to get the best out of this guy, just like he did with Justin Herbert, just like he did, this year with Jalen Hurts. I really do feel like he is the best guy for this job with the candidates that were left. And also it's just kind of the way the league is trending, right, Derek? I mean, you look at all the coaches pretty much, in the final 4 of the playoffs, and every single one of them, I believe, was an offensive coach, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Shanahan and Reed and Sirianni, Steichen, and then, obviously Zach Taylor. I mean, that's kind of the trend of how the game is going. And it's the unfortunate aspect for a lot of defensive coordinators in this world that are definitely really good at their jobs. It's just kind of how it is. Unless you know of an offensive coordinator that can really come in and do a fantastic job for you, then that would make it easy for you. But I mean, going off of this, I mean, again, you and I had Steichen in our top 3 from the very beginning of all of this. And we're like, man, it was funny because I talked with Drake about this too, how remember Colts fans' reactions when we actually requested to interview him? Everyone thought that no, he wasn't going to interview here at all. I mean, people were like, Sirianni's going to deny it. Sirianni's talked all this crap about Indianapolis and, how terrible of a job they are of running this organization. And then sure enough, Steichen, 90% chance that he's going to end up being our head coach again, which is very interesting to say the least. Going off of Steichen's ability, clearly you said he's worked with Phillip Rivers. He's worked with Justin Herbert. He's worked with Jalen Hurts. We've seen him develop Jalen Hurts into what he is now. I mean, we saw from the first year when he was with Sirianni, Sirianni was the primary play caller, and that just didn't end up working out very well. Shane Steichen takes over, and then immediately this offense just turns into a whole nother animal, especially in the playoffs. The Eagles had 3 different skill position players this last year reach 1,000 yards in all-purpose yards. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Miles Sanders. So 3 different players all reaching 1,000 yards in a season. When did the Colts have one? I think it was just Michael Pittman, right?
I don't even know if he reached 1,000
I don't remember if Michael Pittman quite reached 1,000. He might have. But, I mean, again, just goes to show you the Colts might have been able to muster one, let alone another one with, I mean, Jonathan Taylor most likely would have reached 1,000 had he been healthy.
He didn't, Derek. He was 925 yards. So the Colts didn't have one single player skills position wise reach 1,000 yards. The Eagles had 3.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, of course, like we said, A.J. Brown is a top 15 wide receiver in this league, and it's not even a debate anymore. He is a really, really good player. And of course, the Colts don't quite have a wide receiver quite like A.J. Brown at the moment, but you have other collections of units, and you have a way better running back than what you have in Miles Sanders currently. And we've seen what they've been doing with Miles Sanders throughout the playoffs. Miles Sanders is averaging over 100 yards a game in the playoffs. In the 2 or 3 games that they played, they're destroying people. They're murdering defenses out there right now. It's making it look easy. So, I mean, how do you feel, Cody, from a confidence standpoint and Steichen being able to develop this offense, whatever quarterback we end up going with, which we'll talk about in a topic for another day when we actually find out if he's confirmed to be the guy. But how do you feel about him being able to develop this offense and run this offense in Indy as he does it in Philly?
Yeah, I mean, I think the good thing is something that unfortunately Reich, kind of got dealt, bad hand in. Is like Reich only had, a top quarterback, or a top prospect of a quarterback 1 year. And that was Andrew Luck in 2018. And then besides that, he never really had that. He had Phillip Rivers for a year, and, say what you want about Reich. And I know he had his issues, but, the good thing with Steichen is he's going to have an option to get his guy. And I think now you can even pound the table more to go get that quarterback, like even more than maybe you were. And maybe Steichen will do that a little bit more. But in terms of confidence that Steichen can develop this offense, I mean, I just look at his track record and what they've been able to do and what he's been able to do. I mean, we talked about it to death, Derek, when it comes to a quarterback, right? You can have, 1 to 52 if your roster's not that great, but your quarterback is that great. You can still win in this league. It's kind of crazy, but like the quarterback still rules all and will always rule all, And so at the end of the day, the Colts already have a pretty solid roster, 1 to 52. The quarterback is just so so bad last year that it just really just held back this team completely from what it did. And then the morale gets shot. And like Chris Ballard said, like you lost your competitive edge, like you lost those things. And this team just lost its identity overall. And so with Steichen's record, with developing 2 young quarterbacks, who there were questions about both of them, Derek. Remember, a lot of people were out on Justin Herbert for whatever reasons. And then the Chargers took a chance on him. They went for him. They drafted him, and then Steichen helped develop him. And then, you look at the same way with Jalen Hurts. People are like, they took a quarterback. They have Carson Wentz under contract. They just paid him how much money? But then, you see from year 1 to year 2, like he talked about when Sirianni turned over the play calling, what the Eagles offense was able to do. Now, obviously they had more talent. They were healthier this year. That is certainly a factor, but this offense is unstoppable for the majority of the year. Unstoppable when they were healthy. And so I look at that, and I'm not saying the Colts are going to have like the best offense in the league this next year because, the Colts don't have a quarterback like Jalen Hurts right now. It's going to take probably a year or two to get this quarterback, to the level you might want him to be. But I think this is the most confident I've been in the Colts, honestly, Derek, in a couple of years, in the direction of this franchise, in the direction of this team. And here's the thing that I think people kind of miss when they talk about Frank Reich versus Shane Steichen. The first thing is, I don't know if you've seen the video or not, Derek, but Shane Steichen's not Frank Reich when it comes to competitiveness. Like, Shane Steichen, he's more of a fiery guy.
Yes.
He'll get in your face. He'll do those things a little bit more than Frank Reich would.
Yeah.
And also the second thing that people don't really, I guess, take into account is like before Frank Reich got hired, he was not calling the plays in Philadelphia. Doug Peterson was calling the plays in Philadelphia.
Right.
So Frank Reich comes over, he calls the plays, and obviously there were some issues with play calling because he hadn't done it before. But Shane Steichen, he's done it, Derek. He's done it he hasn't just done it, he's done it at a elite level, where he's just torching defenses. It helps to have talent. Obviously it does. But when you can call the plays like Shane Steichen has called them, and when you see your offense go from where it was last year to where it is now, I mean, the players obviously have a huge role in that, but the offensive coordinator, the guy that's calling the plays, he deserves a ton of the credit as well. And so I just look at it, and really the only thing I can see besides obviously the coaching tree there, I don't really see Steichen and see Reich as similar at all in a lot of ways. Like, I really don't. Besides the ties with Philadelphia, I don't really see a whole lot of similarities with these guys in terms of personality and also in terms of just what their role was with the Eagles when they got hired with the Colts. I think it's 2 completely different situations that just happen to be the same team. That's my opinion on it. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I feel the exact same way, man. I feel the exact same way. I think that, again, it's a cop-out argument, once again, to say that that you can just say, oh, they came from the same team in the same role, and therefore it's going to end up being the same result. It's not. They're 5 years apart. They're 5 years apart, and they had different roles in the same position as before. So it's completely different. Reich was more of a scheme kind of guy where he would develop schemes and then the coach would call the plays. It's different with Steichen. Steichen obviously understands the game and he schemes a little bit, but Sirianni is the one that normally does scheming, and Steichen's the one that's calling the plays and knows how to get the best plays out for certain players. So that is a very important aspect of this that's completely different and how we approach it. And ultimately, again, the big question of And I promise, guys, we're going to have a lot more videos coming out. If indeed this news is true, we're going to break down every single aspect of this hire and who he's going to bring, what's going to do this, how is this going to work, blah, 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 his personality, why he's a good coach, all of this stuff later on. So we're just waiting for it. But I mean, the big question, Cody, that everyone now is asking is, Steichen coming in is great, but the question is he going to end up having somebody else come with him, and who would that be? Who is actually going to be his OC? We talked about, the Eagles quarterback coach, but now he may potentially get promoted at some point, and that may end up being what they have to do. And I don't know, you brought up some other names. Why don't you identify some of those names for me?
Sure, absolutely. I think one of them that's probably pretty likely, just because he's on the same staff, is Kevin Patullo. He's the Eagles passing coordinator. He's worked in the NFL. He's been in the league for a while, Derek, in terms of coaching since 2007. He spent times with Kansas City and Buffalo, with Tennessee, New York. He was actually with the Colts from 2018 to 2020. I think he was brought over with Sirianni when he came over to Philadelphia. And so the Colts would bring him back. So he has some familiarity, some ties to the organization. That would be one name. And I know another name that's been thrown around, speaking of ties to the organization. How about Pep Hamilton, who is the former Houston Texans offensive coordinator? He was with the Colts, when they had Andrew Luck. I know there was a lot of people who were not very big fans of Pep Hamilton at the time. But I don't know. Those are a couple names that immediately come to mind, and some kind of the hot names right now. If there's two guys that I think are potential guys outside of, obviously, the other guy that we talked about, Brian Johnson, the offensive quarterbacks coach for the Eagles. But we'll see on that if he becomes their offensive coordinator or not. But maybe there's a possibility that Steichen could bring him over and be like, hey, man, just come be OC for me. We'll see. But that could potentially be something. Those are just a couple names right away that I think the Colts could fill. I don't know if you saw, Derek, or not, but the Texans are looking to potentially bring in former Colts offensive line coach Chris Strausser.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be really good news, because he is terrible coach.
Terrible. It was not good. We did not.
The offensive line got worse every single year that he was there.
Yeah.
And so you could potentially be, having two good pieces of news there. But yeah, I mean, as far as that goes, I really feel like it could be one of those guys, one of those three guys. I think those are the most likely candidates. Now, I think it's likely as well. And I know, like, our guy Shad has talked about how, Gus Bradley's probably pretty likely, right, to be the DC for the Colts. And that's just one less thing that Steichen has to worry about. Obviously, they have some ties as well, going back to the Chargers days. They crossed paths there when Bradley was there. And so there is some connection there. It's not just like a Matt Eberflus situation where it's like, I don't even know who this guy is. I've never crossed paths with him before. It definitely seems like there's that. And then you just look at what Bradley did with this defense last year. We've talked about it before. It definitely feels like something where Steichen would be one of those guys who would want to bring him in, right? That's what I would say as far as DC goes. But, there are some other, Eagles assistant coaches that maybe the Colts would want to consider as well, if they decide to move on from Bradley. But seems like all signs are pointing to, Bradley staying on as DC. So, overall, I think this is a good hire. Obviously, Colts fans, and I know even the organization, nothing is official until the pen is signed to the paper, right? But this definitely is a process where the Colts took their time, and then some, almost to a ridiculous degree. And fans were getting frustrated. I think media were even getting frustrated. I know as content creators, we were getting frustrated because we're like, we can't just keep talking about the same guys for weeks and weeks and weeks. But overall, I would applaud the Colts. If and when this is official here in the next couple of days, I'll applaud them because they took their time. They didn't have to surrender any draft capital. And there's still plenty of time to get up to speed with everything. And I think the Colts right now, out of all these candidates, they definitely got one of the best ones. I think certainly the best offensive mind on the coaching cycle this year. So I feel really good about where the Colts are right now, man. And I feel really good about them building it finally the right way when it comes to a rookie quarterback and surrounding him with talent. And Steichen's the guy that's done it twice. So I feel like out of all the candidates, he's probably the best guy to do it.
Yeah, man, a freaking weight has just been lifted off my freaking chest, dude. And I feel so good. I can breathe a sigh of relief. I will breathe an even bigger sigh of relief tomorrow or Tuesday or whenever the hire is officially made. When that, and then I won't have to ever worry again. But I do feel much better knowing that it zoomed in and that most likely it's going to be Steichen. You know, we've been talking about it the whole way, Cody. We needed an offensive minded guy that was going to come in here, provide some freaking fire, spice some things up a bit, and, you know, develop this young quarterback that we assume we're going to end up getting here in this draft. So feels really great, man. I'm loving this news today. I don't feel like anything can put me down now, at least for today.
Man, throw up the banner. Throw up the banner.
Throw up
Didn't
the
hire
banner.
Saturday.
Hiring Shane Steichen. We'll
Yeah,
have to wait till
didn't hire
tomorrow
Jeff
to do it.
Saturday. I think it's more of an accomplishment that he didn't hire Jeff Saturday at this point, man.
Yeah.
For
Well,
for Colts fans'
we saw
sanity,
the news that, you know, you mentioned it on the channel yesterday. Ursay gave Ballard the willingness to, you know, pick whoever he chose. After
we knew.
over
We knew it
100
was not
so
gonna be.
hours of talking with these people,
Man.
they sat down and just said, okay, we've narrowed it down to who we want. You pick of this group. We've got it. And you said it like in 24 hours later, uh we we assume we know who the coach is now. So that's great. We'll continue to put out more videos for you guys. Let us know your thoughts on Shane Steichen potentially being the next hire for the Indianapolis Colts for head coach. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys so much for all the support. Greatly appreciate it. And as always, go Colts.